Welcome along to another edition of Leaders Live. I'm David Cushnan, and on the show today it's a sport technology special. We'll be delving into what's hot, what's really hot, and what's coming next across the sports technology space, and of course what it means for fans, venues, partners, and of course teams and leagues. We are live on Twitter and LinkedIn. Hello. Comments, thoughts, well thought through emojis, they're all welcome right now, and you can also catch up at any time between now and forever on the Leaders website and on our YouTube channel. That will be shortly. Coming up today, views from the Bundesliga's digital guru, Andreas Heyden. We'll be joined by Susanne Tedrick, Principal Infrastructure Specialist for Azure Sports at Microsoft. And Infront X's Phil Sharpe is back on the show, providing expert perspective throughout. But first, in James Emmett's absence, we've only gone and got the MD in. That's Leaders Managing Director Laura McQueen. Hello, Laura, and welcome to the studio.
Hello, DC. It's nice to be here.
Is this your first time in the studio?
Well, I mean, I've been in, but yeah.
Live.
First time live.
Good to have you, and we are gearing up. It's quite a busy time out there in the Leaders office. It's our busiest time of the year because we are in final preparations for Leaders Week London, and I'm reading that this is an in-person live physical event. What?
In real life, yeah.
Incredible.
Super excited. I mean, so it will be 18 months, I think.
Yeah.
But we're really excited to be back in person. I mean, I should start with obviously safety first. Mm-hmm. We know the world we're living in, so at the forefront of our mind is how do we create a safe environment. So just to cover that off in terms of what we're doing, we're back at Twickenham. We moved to Twickenham a few years ago, and it's turned out to be a great move because they are a COVID-safe certified venue. They've been running vaccinations and testing for the whole way through the pandemic, so brilliant place to be.
Yeah, indeed.
We are running temperature checks on arrival. We're going to ask that everyone who attend be double vaccinated. That includes the team here, partners, delegates. We will be running more hand sanitizer stations than you can possibly imagine.
Yeah.
So you won't be short of hand sanitizer. And our goal is to basically make people feel at ease, ventilation, plenty of space for people to spread out across the stadium. So I'm really excited. What we're hearing is people want to see each other face to face, but of course we want to make sure that we're in a safe environment. Yeah. What about programmes, speakers, what we've got?
Well, yeah, I was just going to say, I think it's going to be quite emotional in a strange sort of way.
I think it might be, though.
I might cry.
No, you won't.
Okay.
But I might.
Speaker-wise, things are looking up and shaping up very nicely. It's worth saying that we've got two stages. The headline stage, all the big vision stuff. We'll have Sally Bolton, the CEO of Wimbledon, having an exclusive fireside chat that you can listen in on with a CEO from outside the sports industry, which should be really exciting. Really looking forward to a session on the continued development of women's sport. We've got Kelly Simmons, who heads up the women's game at the Football Association. Obviously exciting times with the start and the new broadcast partners for the Women's Super League. So she will be with us amongst others. We've got sessions on the power of community and digital fans. We will be talking broadcast technology, of course. Then we've got the Tech and Innovation stage, which is where I'll be located.
Living for the 2 days.
Yeah, that's where I'll base myself. And that's where we have the in-depth case studies, as you know. So we'll be talking fan engagement. There might even be a little bit of CRM in there, a bit of esports, in-depth case studies with the best of the best from across the industry. So really looking forward to that.
Studio?
We've also got a
Not
studio. Different studio at Twickenham, where we're going to be hosting a number of live podcast recordings, which should be quite exciting. Chance for people to come and watch as well. And it's worth saying for anybody who's not able to be with us in person that there'll be a full digital component to the event as well, which means a little bit more work for us, but maximum enjoyment wherever you are.
More accessible for everyone internationally. Twice the work for us.
Indeed, yeah, but
we do it for the love of the industry.
Such is the world these days. In addition to the content, though, and the stages, there's some socialising to be done, Laura, which I know is very much your department.
Up my street, what, the socialising?
Yes.
Well, of course. I mean, I don't think we can say we've been short of content the last 18 months.
Tell me about it.
No offence. But there has been plenty of content available. But what there hasn't been available is face-to-face interaction, the ability to meet and nurture relationships, whether that's people that you've known for a long time in the industry. We know that is a key component of the sports industry. So we have built a program of socialising that it's going to keep you busy.
Yes.
Because you're obviously obliged to work the networking
Sure,
floor.
I'll be mingling.
Indeed. So we've got, on day one, we have the networking area, networking hall. We've got plenty of tables, chairs, meeting spaces for people to kind of book in meetings ahead of time. We always recommend people do that, like get some meetings scheduled in whilst you're there for the week. Day one, the networking hall drinks kicks us off into the evening. Then we move up to the Rose Garden, which is a beautiful venue in Twickenham. Bit of music, bit of not so much some dancing, but never know.
Yeah.
People haven't danced for ages, so they might be up for it. Bit of food, and then we move down to the Ale House, which is for people who've got staying power.
Yeah. Well, for people who don't have a meeting first thing on day two.
Well, or us that do,
Yes,
but have staying power. So that's day one, and then day two, we're super excited. We're bringing the Leaders Sports Awards to Twickenham for the first time. An evening with ... to be announced.
Yeah.
But the winners of the Leaders Sports Awards will be announced and awarded. It's going to be a great evening. We're going to have some recognisable faces there. So we'll round it off on a Thursday evening with a big bash.
It's also worth saying that we've got dedicated events during Leaders Week for our Leaders Meet Diversity series and our Broadcast Disruptors series. We'll be running another think tank there. We've got the CEO Forum, we've got a Brands Forum within the main 2 days at Twickenham too. So there'll be something for everybody. Also, we've got the buzziest, what I like to call the buzziest exhibition floor in the whole of sports business. And really, I think more than ever this year, it's going to be a place to be in terms of sharing ideas, finding solutions, a space to learn, essentially. And we've got some old familiar favourites in terms of our partners like Nielsen. We've got ISG who'll be with us, Spire back with us from Qatar as well. And really excited to see Unity 3D and some of their next level real-time technology that they're going to be bringing along to demonstrate. So that will be well worth popping in and having a look round.
I also think we've been speaking, we've always spoken about events should be a place where you can find solutions. So you're either building relationships with people you know or you want to meet in the industry, or you're coming because you've got a challenge and you speak to people in your organisation all the time, but you don't speak to new people about these challenges. And never before have we been at a time in the industry where we need answers, we need to find a path forward, we need to find new commercial revenue streams, we need to develop new relationships. So I feel this year more than ever, there's an opportunity to sort of use the event to navigate the future of your business sort of strategy into next year.
I think it's going to be good.
It's going to be great.
Yes.
Can't wait. Just a lot of work to get through before then.
Yeah, absolutely. Do register now. Tuesday the 5th, Wednesday the 6th and Thursday the 7th of October. Laura, thank you for popping in to talk us through it, and see you in a few weeks, I guess, for Leaders Week in person, online, and very much back at the heart of the industry.
I think creativity is everything because there's just so much noise now. If you really want someone's attention, it has to be different.
Look, there's no question that the world is going to move to OTT. It's a superior way to get content, but the world is not ready for it.
Sport talks to the next generation.
The women's game is just as important. It opens up to a completely different set of potential fans, customers, consumers.
It's only fair and it's only right that we create this platform of development that will give women the opportunity to compete at the highest level on an equal basis.
9 out of 10 consumers expect brands to contribute to the world in a positive way beyond the delivery of a great product. And I think that's a good thing.
We feel that if we believe in what we've made, that other people will love it too.
Can't wait. Looking forward to it, and we'll see you in October. Before then, On with today's show. We are live on LinkedIn, on Twitter, and we are on demand. And you can get in touch any which way at LeadersBiz on Twitter or by commenting either underneath or beside the live feed you're watching on LinkedIn. And now it's time for today's big question, which is, it's just me, what's the single most impactful piece of sports tech that nobody knows about? And this, of course, leads us into a conversation about the technology all around us, technology that's driving the sports industry forward. Over the next few minutes, we'll be delving into what's new, what's making a difference, and what's going to be important in sports technology over the months, years, and decades to come. With the help of our experts, we're going to try and identify some of the solutions and innovations that will enrich the fan experience in venue, at home, and everywhere in between. And we will examine the procurement processes, the human elements, and the integration models that are fundamental to any successful sports tech initiative. And to help us get started with all of that, let's bring in our resident expert for the day. It's Phil Sharpe, Infront X's Managing Director and Chief Operating Officer, who is back with us and with me throughout the show. Phil, very good to have you with us.
David, thanks for having me back again. I was wondering if you would after my last performance, so I appreciate the invitation.
No, it was a stunning success, Phil, and we're looking forward to a great follow-up today. And I'm going to hit you with the big question straight off the bat. What is the most impactful piece of sports technology that nobody knows about?
It's interesting. When you asked me this in preparation, I was thinking, if nobody knows about it, then how can I tell you what it is? But I think, in essence, what's flying under most people's radar that's going to pop its head very quickly is a combination of edge services enabled as part of the Internet of Things package, enabled by ultra-wideband 5G on a, I'd say, geographically dispersed basis. So what that enables is a reduction in cost in production for a lot of people who've not been able to produce high quality video of their events because of accessibility, because of transport, etc. So it'll reduce costs, but it'll also increase the revenue for those folks because they're now going to be able to distribute events that you could only see in person. They'll be able to see it on a much wider basis globally. And I think that's the other benefit. So you've got the production side of this. I think then the user experience side of this brings in a thing which we're calling, I guess, extended reality, which in essence means taking the 60,000 people in a stadium and turning it into 6 million people globally who through extended reality can experience the audio, the perspective and everything of the event in real place, which of course has the potential to open up tremendous revenue for a lot of rights holders, associations and leagues, etc. So I think that's the one that people have just almost taken for granted, but not really paying attention to the potential of it.
Good stuff, Phil. You are with us through the show, and I know you're going to be jumping in with a comment or two and a question or two for our guests. So good to have you aboard, and we'll hear from you in a moment. We're going to bring in our first guest now, who's going to help us understand the technology philosophy and approach to innovation at one of Europe's big 5 football leagues. The Bundesliga kicked off a couple of weekends ago with that familiar feeling of hope and hype, the continued return of fans to venues, and a number of exciting new innovations, mainly centred on how games are viewed, consumed and enjoyed. And let's hear more about all of that and more now by bringing in Andreas Heyden, EVP of Digital Innovations at the DFL, which runs the Bundesliga. Andreas, very good to have you with us.
Thank you. Welcome also from my side, David. Thank you for the invitation.
No problem at all. Andreas, we're going to talk about what's coming down the tracks in terms of sports technology a little bit later, but it would be really good to almost set the parameters of the conversation in terms of your role and also DFL's role and view and philosophy on technology. Can you maybe sum up what the approach is at an organisational level?
Sure. just a quick one on my person. I'm running all media production for the DFL, producing the whole media scope of the Bundesliga, from the international TV signal to webs and apps and digital services. And my other role in the DFL is to drive digital innovation in any aspect of our business. Generally speaking, you could sum up our strategy in the so-called, we gave it the name glass-to-glass strategy. It starts with the glass of the camera lens when the game is captured in the stadium, and ends with the glass of the iPhone or the TV set for the consumer. The whole production way in between, we want to control on the highest level and make it as efficient, we're Germans, as efficient as possible on the highest quality level. And each little part in that value chain is going through a dramatic change. We see a digital transformation in the production in the stadium. I will talk about these innovations later. In the production of the content itself, to the distribution models, to the consumption models, and to the business model of our licensees. And only by behaving like a media company, we can service our direct clients, the media companies, best.
And we'll, as you say, we'll come on and talk about some of those specific innovations that you've introduced recently in a moment. As a league, and Bundesliga is one of the most prominent leagues in the world. How cautious, how adventurous can you afford to be as a rights holder when it comes to new technologies? And we all know there's a huge amount of new technology, new products, new services, that I presume are being offered your way. Are you an organisation that takes risks, for want of a better word, when it comes to implementing new technologies, or do you like to wait a little and see how others fare with them?
I think we are quite conservative in our business model. So we produce the greatest football in the world for the greatest broadcasters in the world. We have standing contracts over years from Sky to ESPN to various broadcasters, over 60 around the world, where there is a defined production volume, quantity and quality that we need to deliver, and that we're happy to deliver, and most of the time over-deliver. But we see changes in requests from our media partners and changes in customer behavior, which we need to learn, we need to explore and learn what this would mean for our business model. For example, in the last international sales period and tender process, we have built a fully scoped OTT product, where at the end we decided not to launch it because the contracts were good. We were able to create new customer experiences, taking 5G, AR, AI, and combining new products out of it in a controlled environment. We always start with a proof of concept, we go to an MVP, and somehow it would become a commercial model. So for example, this Tuesday, we did our vertical video production. So 1.5 years ago, pre-COVID, we produced our first proof of concept as a vertical video. We then developed it with a full native production of vertical video, and we streamed the Super Cup together with RAN from Germany and OneFootball for Brazil, live vertically to TikTok, and over 1 million people watched it. And this is tremendous. If you can come up with a crazy idea and a data point, over 50% of our users watch video in a vertical way on our app, on our web, on our social media. With the idea, let's create a vertical video and then give it to our broadcasters, who then distribute it through a social media network. And all this development goes within months. It's really awesome to see, to bring these innovations to life. So we have to disrupt ourselves. We have to question everything that we are doing, because if we don't do it ourselves, somehow we would be disrupted from the outside.
And tell us a little bit more about when you introduce an innovation like the vertical video service or feature. There's obviously a number of people who are using that service or feature. That's one way of measuring it. What are some of the other general metrics that you like to put in place when it comes to a new piece of technology or a new feature, as you mentioned?
Yeah, for us, it's always the application of a technology and not the technology itself. So we are not saying, oh, AR is so trendy, let's do AR. We're doing it always out of a use case, out of a customer insight from a fan or from a media partner. I think the first measure of success is feasibility. Are we able to pull this off? And also last Tuesday at our Super Cup, we showcased an IR case on the Nreal augmented reality glasses when you had real-time streaming within your living room with data points coming at the same time, replays of the games, of the goals in virtual. And we weren't really sure whether it worked live because you have to synchronize video and data and general feasibility. But we were so confident. We invited the press, we invited Philip Lahm, we invited one of our legends. We did a whole focus group at the same time with real customers and letting them explore the technology. So the first one is, are we able to do it? The second one is qualitative and quantitative feedback from customers, from fans, and from our media partners. And thirdly, it's a question, does it contribute to our business model? So is it something where in future we could create a new right out of it, where we could create a new business model out of it and maybe package it in future licensing deals? But first we have to see, will we make it work? Will customers value it? And then we can put a price on it.
Andreas, we've got Phil Sharpe from Infront who is with us today, and I know he's listening in. And Phil, I'm really interested in your view of what Andreas was just talking about there. And is that approach that he talked about to technology, to integrating technology, to bringing a new feature on, is that sort of familiar to you in the kind of conversations that you're having with rights holders all across the world?
It is. The sequence is sometimes different. Sometimes we will find rights holders who put value first. So they're looking for, what will this business model be? How will we monetize this? Will we reduce costs? Will we increase our audience? Will we get more reach? But I think from a true innovation perspective, focusing on feasibility first makes a lot of sense, because there's no point in putting a business model together if you can't build the thing. So I wouldn't say we're seeing it across the board. I would say some folks tend to go after the next shiny thing and are focused on that because they want press around it, etc. They have a different objective. But I think the way Andreas sequenced this and focused it, frankly, is admirable. And folks who do a good job of this tend to follow a similar path.
And Andreas, as I touched on earlier, the Bundesliga as an internationally renowned league, an internationally renowned product. I imagine you've got service providers, suppliers, all sorts of companies with a different product or a solution queuing up to try and talk to you. What are the kind of things that you're looking for as an organisation in a third-party supplier or partner?
As we have to deliver two goals, we need to deliver contracts on the highest possible quality and quantity, and we need to deliver disruption, new ideas, new approaches. So for us, the first and foremost, most important thing is the question, does it give us a toolbox or does it solve a specific problem? For the specific problems, the list of our problems is endless. So tool, then we may go towards a single provider helping us to solve that problem. But if we really want to go broad and deep, then we work together with AWS, for example. AWS delivers us a toolbox of a vast program of machine learning capabilities, AI capabilities, which then help us to build on top of this technology a solutions layer. The second one is for me reliability. On the one hand side, does they live up to their promise to keep the services live and the highest quality and quantity? But also, are they managing a proper roadmap, or do they just want to have the Bundesliga name on it and then don't innovate anymore, etc. once they have us under contract? And thirdly, sure, price equals value for us. Does it make more sense to do so? For example, we're buying lots of AI services where we free up humans' time to help them be creative. So we work together with WSC from Israel, which is an AI pre-processing AI software which creates automatic video clips I'd rather have a well-paid creative director working on an innovation, on a very compelling and engaging piece of content than setting in and out points. So here it makes sense to spend money to free up time of humans to create creativity.
Andreas, you talked about AI and machine learning, and it seems like we've been talking about it for a decade or more. Clearly, it is now happening. It is now a thing. In terms of football and football leagues and football clubs, what do you see as the major ways in which AI and machine learning will be used over the next decade? How do you see the rise of AI as it relates to football in particular?
Yep, I really don't like to call it AI. I'd rather go for intelligent algorithms and machine learning, because it's not yet really intelligent. But, and coming back to Phil's point in the intro, I think we are going towards a decade of content discovery, content production, enablement of leagues, clubs, players to open up new pockets of content and being able for clubs to or leagues to monetize, or first make accessible and later monetize games that would have not been shown. Create data products out of video products where normally there needs to be somebody from Opta or Sportradar typing down values when you could read it from a camera directly. We will see the artificial exposure or the artificial presentation of a game through gaming engines. I won't say the catchword of the day, metaverse, but it is something where through a camera today you can recognize the 3D skeleton. You can put a figure on top of it, and then you have little Lego or whatever you want players on a virtual field, and you have your AR, VR camera on, and you can see the game without seeing the game in a new way. And here we need the power of the cloud. We need the power of clever algorithms. We need the power of machine learning models transforming data or creating data and transforming data into video, into media.
Phil, do you want to jump in there? Because I know this is an area that you're thinking about quite a lot.
Yeah. It's interesting. Several comments on what Andreas has been saying. First of all, we tend to use the word, it's very simple, automated content production. But we've seen with several of our clients now exactly what Andreas was saying. We've also worked with WSC, folks like Narrative Science, etc. And now if you synchronize that with the video, which is synchronized with data, in essence, you can tell the story of the game in a different way, in an automated way. So A, you're reducing your costs, but B, you're bringing it, and then B, you're bringing it down to a whole level of league, club, etc., that didn't have access to that. They couldn't afford to have several people producing content. Now we automate it and we generate it and we can put it out there. So I think that's critical. Secondly, to a point Andreas made, I think picking these point solutions, as Andreas said, sometimes you look at a really smart, cool solution, but you wonder how it's going to play out. And often I think integrating one with one or two others, and that's what Andreas was talking about, when you pull them together into a solution. Now you've taken one or two platforms or technologies, you now have a more holistic solution. We're seeing that happening more and more as well. So definitely seeing more alignment, more people going down the path that Andreas is describing. I think finally, when we talk about the extended reality, and I love what you said, Andreas, about you don't like to call it intelligence. I tend to call it augmented intelligence rather than artificial intelligence, because it's always helping somebody. Going back to what I said at the start, though, and this is where companies like Microsoft and others, AWS, etc., they're bringing the power right to the device, the end device. So now there is so much more computing power there. It's going to be amazing what we can do going forward. And so I think that's very exciting and goes to the theme of this speech, this conversation, sorry.
Andreas, just a couple more minutes and a couple more questions for you. I wanted to ask about tech incubators, which is, again, a trend that we've seen growing across the sports industry, whether it's leagues or clubs or, other types of organisation within the industry launching these tech incubators, tech accelerator programs. What do you see as the pros and cons of doing something like that? There's obviously a commercial element to it potentially in terms of being in at the ground level, but from a tech integration point of view, what are the good bits? What are the bad bits?
I think on the one hand side, it is always good to be out in the market, be in contact with startups, get insights from new ways, new technologies, new approaches, etc. And being close to startups is helpful next to the whole big hyperscalers and listening from them and learning from them. I think the running an accelerator program is a lot of work, and there are companies who are professionally doing it for a financial ROI. We as a league haven't chosen that approach. We were very selective. I think we said no to 99% of all startups that we came across. When we go for a DFL for Equity company, we are looking in technology that supports our business model and that we can accelerate with our rights, with our content, etc. For example, something like Track 160, who produce based on cameras, data points. We have 150,000 hours in our football archive. We very well can train algorithms, for example, but also we have a network of our clubs and we can get this software rolled out. There is lots of startups, and we have a handful more of startups that we are involved in, from data to copyright protection to also a small B2C AI powered game. So there's lots to come, but we take a very concentrated step-by-step approach, and we're not yet partnering with any investment bank or something like this. They really have to extend or deepen our production value strain glass-to-glass strategy.
Fantastic stuff. Andreas, we've run out of time. It's been great to have you with us to give us an insight into what the Bundesliga is doing, and we wish you every success for the rest of the season, and keep those innovations coming.
Thank you much. See you in London.
See you there. Thank you very much. Andreas Heyden, EVP of Digital Innovations at the DFL, which runs the Bundesliga. Now we are going to have a sports technology interlude from the US at this point, where of course sports betting continues to be the subject of much investment and innovation as more and more states make it legal. We asked our colleague at Sports Business Journal, Bill King, to share a postcard of how technology is providing the fuel for a rapidly expanding sports betting sector. And here's what he had to say.
If you talk to most of the CEOs, most of the sportsbook CEOs at DraftKings, at FanDuel, Jason Robbins at DraftKings would tell you, for example, BetMGM would tell you that they see themselves as tech companies. They are online platforms. They take bets online. They deliver content online. They see themselves much more like a Google or an Amazon than they do necessarily what you would think of as a traditional brick and mortar sportsbook, like a retail operation. So that's for starters. And so when you think about these, particularly the larger ones out there, as they're building out businesses and they're making acquisitions, one of the things they're doing is acquiring a tech platform. They're either building it themselves, and if they don't have it themselves, they're buying them. And so when you see these SPACs and they put things together, you look at Bally's, right, which was a retail casino chain, a relatively small regional retail casino chain, bought the Bally's brand to give themselves brand recognition, and then went out and bought BetWorks, which is an online sports betting platform, right? So they put those things together. They did a big deal with Sinclair to put the brand all across regional sports networks across the United States, and there you're off and running. Now again, they're well behind everyone else because they're only in a few states, but they're building in that direction. And each one of these, when you think about DraftKings, one of the earliest things they did was the acquisition of a company called SB Tech, and they have rolled it in, and they're up until now, their technology, their platform provider has been Kambi. And at launch, that's what a lot of these companies were doing. They were using these white label providers. But as the business has grown, everyone wants to control their own technology. They want to own their own tech stack. They want to develop their own tech stack. As the market changes, they want to be able to adjust on the fly. As the business changes, they want to be able to adjust on the fly as they move into new markets and regulations may change. And so all those things can be done more quickly and efficiently. And oh, by the way, they would say more cost effectively when you own it yourself. And they do have deep pockets to make those acquisitions. And that's where we're really seeing separation. We're seeing a handful of 5 or 6 or 7 of the leaders and likely emerging leaders in the space in terms of market share. They're these companies that have positioned themselves to sort of top to bottom own everything, including their technology. That's the direction this is going. There certainly will still be those white label providers out there. They will continue to do deals to work with, small. It could be tribal. It could be tribal casinos. It could be any number of people who really don't have the resources to do their own thing. But those who can have, and I think they'll continue to.
And that's Bill King on betting, and you can find more on the rapidly expanding sports betting sector and indeed every bit of sports business news that you could imagine at sportsbusinessjournal.com. Now, Microsoft needs little introduction, but through its partnerships with the likes of the NFL or Real Madrid, PGA Tour or NASCAR, it's playing an increasingly prominent role in how we watch and interact with sport and how sports organisations run themselves. So let's get a perspective from Microsoft and in particular its Azure cloud computing service by speaking to Principal Infrastructure Specialist there, Susanne Tedrick, who is joining us live now. Susanne, very good to see you.
Very good to see you too, David. Thanks so much for having me.
No problem. It's great to have you with us. I know you've been listening into the conversation with Andreas and Phil, and I want to pick up on a couple of points they made with you. But maybe first of all, just paint a picture for us as to your role at Microsoft and where it sort of fits in the bigger picture of sport and Microsoft, please.
Yes, absolutely. So as you mentioned, I do work for Azure, which is Microsoft's cloud computing platform. Myself, along with my colleagues, we have a number of discussions with our clients focusing on cloud infrastructure, data, AI, analytics, and adopting modern cloud native development architectures and methodologies. And so my part is a bigger part of what Microsoft does for the sports leagues. You might have seen some previous successes with Microsoft Surface, Microsoft Teams, Power BI. We provide a lot of comprehensive technological solutions to both the major professional sports leagues and teams, as well as at the college level as well.
And to what extent do you and, in terms of the organisation that you're working in within Microsoft, to what extent do you see sport as a test bed for new technology versus a showcase for products, or is it a bit of both?
I would say it's a little bit of both, depending on the clients that we're speaking to. For some, innovation is part of their core DNA, where they just want to see how far they can push their limits and how far they can go, whereas others are really perhaps earlier in their innovation process. And are still trying to figure out what looks best for them, what good looks for them, and what they're going to be able to scale efficiently in the future.
Now, those of us who are thinking about the sports industry all day long, we're very much in the sports industry bubble. It's really interesting to speak to somebody like you who maybe is half a step removed from that core sports industry bubble and has maybe a view of the bigger, wider world of technology. Where does sport as a sector fit in terms of its approach to integrating technology, to developing new technologies? I mean, is it advanced? Is it compared to other sectors, or are there areas that it can perhaps learn from other sectors?
I would actually say it's more advanced in comparison to some other industries. I think that there is a willingness to embrace technology and innovation for the sake of improving the performance of athletes, increasing the fan engagement, operational efficiency, so on and so forth. I think that the industry also realized that it had to, given the circumstances that we had with the COVID pandemic. Very quickly, we had to adopt things so that we were not only bringing in revenue, but we're continuing to interact with one another. I think we've all learned that sports is very much an integral part of our society. And for many people that were going through a lot of challenges, sports provided a bit of a release or a way to connect with people. So I think for the sports industry, I think it realized pretty quickly that, as was mentioned earlier, they knew that they had to innovate, and there's just this embrace of it from the start.
Yeah, I guess there's nothing like a bit of necessity to force innovation. Phil, let's bring you back in at this point because I wanted to touch on what Bill King from Sport Business Journal was saying a moment or two ago, and this idea of I suppose it's a new industry within itself, this sports betting industry, particularly in the US, that's exploding right now. And really interesting what Bill was saying about the betting operators and all these companies that have are spending on brand awareness and building out their armory, if you like, see themselves as tech platforms as well. And I wonder whether to what extent you feel as though that's going to be a real area of tech innovation that sport will ultimately benefit from over the next few years.
Yeah, I think it's going to be an area of integration rather than just innovation itself. I think we'll see innovation in different realms of sport and sport technology. I think the platforms, what you've got with these betting operators, let's be frank, is a heck of a lot of money. And they're able to put money into things that others may only be able to play with. So they're able to acquire new companies. You know, you were asking Andreas earlier about the accelerator and incubator concepts. Well, these folks have got the money to do that, and they will play with multiple platforms to see what integrates, what creates value, etc. We're already seeing them do significant rights deals around data, around video, etc. You know, in Europe, and particularly in the UK, for many, many years, the betting operators have streamed, in effect, video live into their betting shops. I think we're just seeing an explosion of that now. I think we'll also see what Andreas was referring to earlier, and which Microsoft provide a platform for, which is the augmented intelligence, machine learning, forecasting, statistical analysis. So if you're making bets, you would be much better informed than just if you're reading the newspaper sporting news. You can actually get real-time information on prop bets, etc., which will open up the whole market to laying off of bets, which makes more money for these betting operators. So I think you'll continue to see that, and I think you'll see them integrating properties and then divesting those properties that don't work for them, but they've got the money to play with that going forward. So I see tremendous growth in that place, and almost, hate to say it, indiscriminate growth, because they can afford to. They can see what pays off and what doesn't.
And Susanne, from a Microsoft and a wider tech standpoint, I suppose, how do you assess the rise of sports betting in terms of, we know what it's doing for leagues and teams, and we know the potential that exists, use of data, as Phil was saying, increased need for real-time analysis. How are you sort of piecing all the pieces of the jigsaw puzzle together?
I think, honestly, just from my personal perspective, I think this is a larger narrative on increasing that fan engagement. I think this is something that fans have talked about, have wanted for quite some time. I think Phil was right on the ball that it's not a matter so much of an innovation conversation, but integration. Putting this more in the hands of the fans, and really making it more commonplace for them. So I think from our perspective, it's part of that fan engagement narrative.
In your experience, Susanne, how do you what do you see teams and leagues struggling with when it comes to integrating technology?
Yeah, that's a very hearty question. It's as I said, it's definitely a thing of innovation. We know that we have to innovate, but it's creating a strategy that makes sense for them to kind of go to bat with. Making sure that the solutions make sense, making sure that you have the proper skilling within your organization, or if you don't, where are you going to get that from? Making sure that the security protocols are in place. It's one thing to have innovation, but you need security for both your business operations as well as your fans. And costs. All of these wonderful things cost money, and for some of the fans that are out there, or rather the teams that are out there, they don't necessarily have the resources at hand. So really working with individual teams and leagues to figure out what does your strategy look like in order to integrate this particular technology.
Phil, we've talked a lot about all sorts of opportunities, and we've been on a whistle-stop tour on the show around all sorts of elements of the tech space. Impossible to cover it all, of course, in detail. I wonder, is there anything that you're seeing when it comes to sport and technology that's concerning you, that's raising a little bit of an alarm bell at the moment?
I think it's not raising an alarm bell. It's interesting to me, the folks are seeing the opportunity to leverage technology. Folks often look at it as a silver bullet. They look for a quick win. And I think what they forget is it takes expertise and experience to guide somebody through implementing whatever these technologies are and integrating them together. So you need the experience, you need the expertise. You need the product management capabilities to be able to develop this and take it forward. You need the project management capabilities because we're in a deadline, do not move industry kind of world, and we have to hit them. And this is something as a company we've learned over the years and we bring to the table. But too many times we see folks snatching at things thinking it's a silver bullet and then getting disappointed. So frankly, from a disappointment, bigger picture, David, I kind of feel like we hit a watershed a few years ago about new technologies with video analysis, data analysis, AI, ML, and everything. I'm looking for the next different technology, and Andreas said disruptive, but true innovation. Instead of just building on something else, I'm looking for something to come out of the woodwork, and obviously I don't know what it is yet. I'd actually like to see some new sports developed leveraging technology. I feel we augment a sport with technology, but there's no, and I'm not talking just esports and gaming, some completely new sports that leverage haptic technologies to integrate with each other and crazy things like that. Where's the science fiction in sport is probably where I'd leave it. That's what disappoints me. I'm looking for that energy and that innovation.
I mean, it may well be, Phil, that Susanne's working on this right now, but probably won't tell us exactly what she's working on. Just to finish off, Susanne, and I'm really interested to get your take on this. Where you look to for inspiration and intelligence on what's next, and whether that's inside sport or outside sport. I'd love to hear where you're seeking the answers, and also to get your sense of the sort of movement of expertise in the sports industry. Would you expect over the next few years, and of course the major leagues, the major teams have chief technology officers and increasingly tech teams in-house, but do you see more expertise coming from outside sport into sport as, frankly, this stuff becomes more and more important and business critical?
Yeah, those are great questions. So I would say for the first, I always try to pay attention to the market and, some of the stories that the market is, kind of telling us on where the needs might be or where we should probably be focusing our energies. But I genuinely look to fans to kind of provide, when they provide their feedback and critique, like, this would be great if we did this. Just hearing fans just talk organically, good, bad, and indifferent, provides a lot of things to kind of think about, not only ways that we can be better, but maybe some innovations that we probably hadn't even dreamed of thinking about and that maybe we should. In terms of the migration of tech talent, as was mentioned before, it is becoming that these teams and leagues are becoming more tech organizations. And for some of the technologies, they're very, very, very sophisticated and do require an advanced skill set, not only from an implementation standpoint, but ensuring that you are getting what you want out of the technology or innovation in question. So I do think that there's going to be more tech talent coming into the world of sports. And I don't know if this is something that people might want to look into. There may be people already in the sports organizations who already kind of have that, I love sports, I love technology, let me marry the two, and just kind of develop that skill set. But it's definitely something that will increase versus decrease with time.
Superb. Susanne Tedrick, thank you very much for joining us today. Phil Sharpe from Infront X as well. Great to see you, Phil. Thanks for being with us on the show. Also thanks to Andreas Heyden from the DFL Bundesliga, and also to our own Laura McQueen, Managing Director here at Leaders, for taking us through what's coming up at Leaders Week London in a few weeks' time. That is our show for today. We are back on the 22nd of September with an athletes special. Look out for that live on Twitter and LinkedIn, and also on demand, as are all the episodes of Leaders Live. But for now, have a great rest of the day, and we'll see you very soon. Bye-bye.